Greetings, hello, welcome to the 10th anniversary of the San Antonio Book Festival and this special pre-recorded session. I'd like to thank Sara Ortiz and Daniel Halsell for helping us put this on. I know the audience is seated outdoors, but for everyone's safety, we kindly encourage everyone to keep their masks on, except when actively eating or drinking. We also ask that you silence your cell phones so that everyone may enjoy the program uninterrupted. If you wish to support the writers participating in this event, you can purchase Dear Vaccine in the Nowhere Bookshop tent across the street. I'm Naomi Shihab Nye. I'm speaking to you from downtown San Antonio. I'm very happy to be part of this festival another year. And I'm so happy, twice as happy, to welcome my dear friends, David Hassler and Tyler Meier, to our virtual stage today. I only wish David and Tyler were here in San Antonio with us, enjoying our hospitality and the pleasures of the gorgeous San Antonio Public Library and Southwest School of Art. The campuses, the air, everything we have to offer here. I would like to introduce my dear friends on this project and on this broadcast. And we've all been friends, by the way, for a very long time. This is not the first time we're meeting. David Hassler is director of the Wick Poetry Center at Kent State University. He co-founded Traveling Stanzas, a national community arts project, and is the author or editor of 9 books of poetry and nonfiction. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Naomi.
Tyler Meier is director of the University of Arizona Poetry Center, which celebrated 60 years as a living archive for poetry in November 2020. So much to be proud of, Tyler. Thank you for all you've done for communities and people of all ages and far-flung people. Because of all the poetry laborers I know, you two really have found the most ways to include everybody, kids, elders, teachers. There's no one left out of your scope of audience. So to be here with you today is really a great honor. Thank you for all you've done. You're the poetry spreaders of the nation, my favorite poetry spreaders. I did forget to introduce myself besides saying my name. I am still the Young People's Poet Laureate through the Poetry Foundation until July of this coming summer, I believe. It was extended due to COVID. And I'm on faculty at Texas State University and still a wandering writer hither and yon. So David and Tyler, we have you to thank for the great project, Dear Vaccine. I am only your sidekick, and I am honored to ask you to describe how this Dear Vaccine book, project first, then book, came into being. David, would you guide us first?
Well, thank you, Naomi. You are the magic seed of this project with your beautiful model poem. This all began with a phone call. Tyler Meier, dear friend and colleague, was in a statewide arts call with agencies in Arizona talking about how the arts can come to the aid of the public health message and to help in this pandemic. And Tyler thought about the work that we've done at the Wick Poetry Center in building community poems using some digital writing tools that we've developed with a wonderful design firm in Kent, Ohio called Each and Every. So Tyler called me up and he said, can we do this together? And it took about a nanosecond to say yes. And then one day later, we realized we needed to reach out to Naomi. And Naomi, as you have mentioned, we were on a call with you pitching this idea, which didn't take long to pitch. And you began literally writing your poem, Dear Vaccine, during the call. Tyler, I mean, what else, what else am I missing in terms of the origin story for this?
Well, this is beginning to capture the magic of it, of how it all started, and the energy behind it, the good energy behind it, this sense that poetry had a role to play and how we might find our way forward and in a really confusing and complicated time. So we went from imagining the project very quickly to implementation. I realized, we're recording this now before the festival, that this whole project has been about a year in total, from ideas to a book being out in the world. So we quickly tried to find ways to connect with vaccination sites to encourage people to use Naomi's model poem with 4 prompts to respond to the project and submit their voices to share them with us in an online space, globalvaccinepoem.com. And go, please. Yeah.
Well, go. And we should say that, as weird as these last 2 years have been for everyone, now it's 2 years since the whole COVID pandemic, locked us all down. As weird as it's been for everyone, you two are great hospitality artists in the realm of poetry. I mean, you're not just sitting in your beautiful rooms by yourselves writing poetry. You are reaching out to community every day of your lives. So it must have been even stranger for you than for many of us. I mean, you had to readjust all of your programming, all of the people you'd invited, all of your workshops, all of your classes. So how was that for you, Tyler?
Yeah, not unlike the festival, I'm sure, in San Antonio. And I wish I was there. I wish we were talking about tacos and telling stories about Tucson tacos and San Antonio tacos. And so in the future, we'll do that. But it was hard. We had to, we're a large physical structure in Tucson, and that's one of the things we're really proud of. And we do a lot of work in schools. We do a lot of work in community-based places in Tucson. And so the inability to gather in corporeal forms was a challenge for us, and finding ways to still, have those connections, finding ways to connect with people became one of the things we hunted. We really needed that, and we were seeking ways to do it. And we found that people were excited to meet us there. So it was digital spaces, and it was projects like this that created a big welcome mat that reminded people that we still needed their connection.
So beautiful. And David, you work out of a wonderful little vintage house on the Kent State University campus. Tell us about Wick Poetry Center and what you had to do for the year leading up to Dear Vaccine.
Yes. Well, like Tyler, we have a wonderful gathering space, not as large as Tyler's beautiful building, but it's a historic 3-story house with a beautiful lower level as well for a classroom. Yeah. And we all had to pivot like everyone else during this pandemic. And I think what was interesting is to discover how the human spirit, continues to crave and innovate and find ways to fulfill its expression and to connect with another. And we, of course, pivoted to create digital online writing workshops with students in the community, with elders, with our veterans. And I think this project, Naomi, also gave us a great sense of a way to be of use. And one of the things we discovered in the pandemic with the digital tool like we use for the Global Vaccine Poem Project, we call it Thread, where a user can be, multiple people can be at their computers, following a prompt, typing their own reflection, their own short poem, and submitting. And in real time, when it gets submitted, it goes on to the gallery. We did workshops with folks where they were remote in all locations and charging the air with a conversation, reading a model poem, and then submitting, and then sharing that gallery screen. So everybody in that workshop is seeing what came out of them, and had very intimate moments on Zoom. Where people sometimes cried, they felt very connected with one another, not like being in person, but different. And I think of the webinar we did early on in the project with the Columbia University, and the kind of joyful gathering we had, Naomi, and you were such a big part of that, and bringing some wonderful contributors from London and from the West Coast. So it's interesting how what we've discovered, sort of using this newest technology of digital space to connect us to our oldest technology, which is our language and our own creative expression.
I think too, I mean, like a through line in both of these comments is what we get from poetry, what we need from poetry, was deeper and more profound in the last 2 years. And so there was this desire to kind of surge into that space and figure out how can we do it? What does it look like? So that was a lot of the energy.
I think that word thread that David brought up too is really a central element of what we all did. I kept feeling lucky that we were poets as opposed to like dancers in a troupe of many dancers, because that's a much harder thing to pull off when you're in different spaces. But with poetry and language on a page and reading through a screen, it did seem still to achieve a level of intimacy and care, and where you felt really close to the people you were engaging with, just despite being separated. Thank you for saying thread, David, because I think many times people feel ill at ease around poetry, thinking they need to know lots of things that they haven't learned yet. But no, really all you need to know is that we believe in threads, and we believe that one thread connects to another, and we know we can find ways to grasp on and weave together as we go. I was thinking I could read the model poem right now, and then maybe you could play a couple of videos of participants in the Dear Vaccine Project and talk about making the videos. Is that okay?
That sounds perfect. Let's do it.
Here's the poem that I think I turned into you less than 24 hours after you asked me to do it, but I actually started writing it when we were on the telephone.
And literally about 1 year ago.
Yes. It's a fast book. This book came out fast. Okay. Dear Vaccine, save us, dear vaccine. Take us seriously. We had plans. We were going places. Children in kindergarten. So many voices in chorus. Give us our world again. Tiny gleaming vials enter our cities and towns, shining your light. Restore us to each other. We liked our lives. Maybe we didn't thank them enough. Being able to cross streets with people we didn't know, pressing elevator buttons, smiling at strangers, standing in line to pay. We liked standing in line more than we pretended. It's a quick prick in the arm. You'll barely notice it. It's the gas in the car getting us going again. It's the turn in the road, face-to-face conversation someday soon. It's the hug forever. It's the hug. Vaccine, please make the air clean. We went to yoga classes, deep collective breathing in small rooms in cities where we didn't even live. How brave we were. Vaccine, please restore our lives. Believe they were beautiful. I do remember that even writing that very simple, colloquial, one-on-one poem, I'm talking to you, Vaccine, made me feel better on the spot. I just suddenly felt like I have a relationship with you now, Vaccine. You're mine, you're everybody's, but help us out, we need you. So David, talk about how you got the idea to do the videos from contributors. Well, we should say, so you made the website. Tell the part about the website first. So,
I'd love to. And maybe, Tyler, while I'm introducing the videos, you can show the website, because we now have at 6 in the morning video gallery on a Saturday saying on the Global Vaccine Poem website. George is in the house. Look at this. Of course, we didn't have it when we launched it. But I think as I remember getting kept following the new voices that would show up. Maybe, Tyler, you first just show the homepage. And, this is the website we launched for Global Vaccine Poem. And we started, it gave us a sense of purpose, of usefulness during this pandemic to be collecting the threads of voices from all over the world.
It's so pretty. I never get tired of looking at it. It's so beautiful. And by the way, for anyone listening today, it's not closed. You can still add your voice.
Yeah.
And many people have found other people and stayed in touch with them due to this website. I've heard from, a poet in London gets a letter from someone in another country, and now suddenly they're in touch because their poem was seen on this website. So please feel free to continue to add your voices. But go ahead with how that started pouring in, the waterfall.
Yeah, and we now have over 2,300 voices on the gallery page, and I just approved 2 new ones just yesterday morning. One from South Carolina, I believe, one from Georgia, and I think about several months ago we thought, why don't we invite our contributors in the book to make a selfie video and to submit their video to us? And so, please.
Wait, I just saw one of the great hosts of the book festival is on there now, and I've never seen her poem before. Paula Owen, who's been the director of the Southwest School of Art. She's added a poem on there. That's so cool. Thank you, Paula. I can't wait to read it slowly. So it became like this positive contagion we've talked about. It became like one person leads to another, the word spreads. And before we know it, the voices are coming in.
And now we have over 30 videos that have been submitted to us from contributors to the book. And maybe, Tyler, should we start with Isaiah or?
Sure. Yeah. And I might just say very quickly, so going from the grand scope of the website, which we meant as a way to have as many people speak and include their voices and have the same experience that Naomi had, where you have agency. You can, what's your connection to what you've experienced? Thinking about what it might be like to speak directly to the vaccine and how does that feel? We then organized the project into the book itself, and so that started to form into 6 different sections in the book. And so these video responses all fit into those different sections in the book. And Isaiah's here is first, just like in the model poem, you hear from Naomi about things that we miss or are nostalgic for, how important touch is, relationships. In Isaiah's poem, you'll hear a lot of things that were important to him, especially about family and about things he hopes that the vaccine will make possible. So I will play this now, if that sounds good.
Great.
Let's get this up here.
My name is Isaiah Hunt, and I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. This poem means a lot to me because I come from a close-knit family, and due to the pandemic, we've been very distant. However, this poem is dedicated to my family, to them, entitled, If Not For Me, For Them. Dear vaccine, I had to meet you. If not for me, for them. For my grandma, who I used to laugh and cry with over a bowl of oatmeal. For my little cousin, always asking when our next family get-together would be. For my mom, afraid she might pass out in her kitchen and awake in a hospital. I stood in a long line with others waiting for your pinch in my arm. The lady ahead of me, who looked like my grandma in her purple suit and big hat, shouted, I'm going to church after this, then graciously gave you her arm. Each tiny syringe of you contains the power to bring the world together. We're getting closer to our Sunday gatherings and family cookouts, high fives, daps, and hugs. With you, dear vaccine, it grows easier by the day. I'm so glad I met you. If not for me, for them.
He's so wonderful. I want to go to one of his cookouts with him and talk to him.
Yeah. And I love that feeling of, what will this make possible, in the sense that it could make possible the pleasure of going to church again. The things that we want to get back to. Such a rich, lovely, evocative poem.
And for our listeners today, you can go to the Dear Vaccine site and look at all of the videos from all around the world yourselves. So we're just sharing 3 of them today. Tell us about the next one, Tyler.
Yeah, so let's go down to Mary Ellen Chown. I'm going to scroll down. This is what you'll see as you come to the site. Make sure I haven't passed it yet.
We just passed San Antonian Lahab Assef Al-Jundi. So you can see him.
So here's Mary Ellen, and I know you guys were just working with this this poem earlier today, so we'll share this one. So Isaiah's from Ohio, Mary Ellen's from Canada. Is that right?
Yes,
That's right.
Okay, very good. So we'll play this one.
My name is Mary Ellen Chown, and I live in Oakville, Ontario, Canada. And I send this poem out with gratitude to all the frontline workers, scientists, public health leaders who are bringing us through this pandemic and bringing me back to myself. Dear vaccine, for too long, I have been a goldfish circling a small bowl, a goose hissing at danger near my brood, a spider fretting my carefully spun webs rent in this storm. At midnight, I'm a mosquito playing vibrato on the E string, a loon wailing for those I cannot touch, a doe in strange woods, twitchy. Vaccine, please bring me back to my anthropoid self, a woman who wakes without dread to a day rife with possibility.
Wow.
I love how she's standing in front of that beautiful painting as she speaks. And I know we're going to play Ofelia, but maybe we could add Lahab since he is a local person. So two more.
Two more. Yeah. And what a lovely poem from Mary Ellen. I mean, beautiful.
So
The range
beautiful.
of responses, the things that, you know, what I realize in listening to these poems and in rereading the book, how uneven this pandemic has been for each of us. And yet it is still this thing we have in common. So our experiences have been different. You know, losses have been different, but we've all lost things. And so it's powerful to hear these voices. And I feel, even though my experience is my own, this connection to everyone in these voices, and it's so powerful. So let's go back to Lahab. Let me make sure. Here we go. San Antonio in the house.
Yes.
Dear vaccine, dear vaccine, we have been waiting for you, ready to roll up our sleeves to receive you, smiling behind our masks in anticipation of your gentle piercing. And although some people are afraid of you, cannot bring themselves to trust you, as if the virus is their friend, as if this pandemic that has killed millions is less of a threat. Just a hoax invented by some fool. Please ignore them. They'll eventually come around. Or perhaps they are hoping to survive long enough for the rest of us to save them. Yes, dear vaccine, you are the savior. Come sing us your molecular song of freedom.
I'm so glad we heard that one. Dear Lahab, he's originally from Syria, is an engineer, and has lived in San Antonio a long time. Such a wonderful poet with a very wry twist of perception and wisdom always. And so Ofelia, tell us about her.
Sure. Ofelia is a Tucsonan and a good friend in Tucson. And when we play Ophelia's poem, you'll hear both English and another language. And that language is Tohono O'odham, which is one of Ophelia's, her mother language. So we'll share this and get that going too. Let's see. I think we'll share this. There we go. Okay. I'm going to turn up the sound again.
Dear vaccine, Kuren, Shapa Masma, Yatumna, Yamnoi Bukpa. We meet you and shake your hand in greeting. It has been some time since we shook anyone's hand. Sapachta Yamne, we are happy to see you. We have been waiting for your arrival for some time. Your journey is done. You will now rest in our bodies. Like other healers before you, you will be there when we need you. The tale of your journey will be held in our collective stories. It will be retold next year when we acknowledge the death anniversaries of our relatives and friends and all those who tried to fight the enemy alone. We will tell of the battles you fought on your journey, the battles against non-believers and conspiracy theorists. You will be known as a hero, a slayer of enemies, and like so many others before you, you will be known by many names.
Wow. Wow.
Thank you so much for sharing those videos, Tyler and David, and also for collecting them. I hear these voices, and to me, they feel like an anthem of hope. How would you describe the furthering of the project into an actual tangible book? And I want to point out that everyone is commenting on how beautiful the book is in its interior, because you honored each piece with a full page, which is very rare in anthologies such as this, community collective anthologies. Everybody gets a full page. Some people get a really large font. Describe your decisions about doing that.
Well, we are so thrilled with the design of the book, and we are so grateful to the Kent State University Press and their designer, Chris Brooks, who did the absolute attentive work of laying out every single page differently, coming up with a beautiful cover design. And, you know, we had conversations with them, showed them some models, talked about the concept. And then Chris Brooks and the director, Susan Wadsworth Booth, really, really worked on creating such a beautiful book. The executive director of the Ohio Arts Council, who has generously funded much of the cost of the book, the Ohio Arts Council, she told us after reading through the digital copy of the book, she said, my goodness, I'm so appreciative that I needed the space between each poem to breathe, to take in a breath, often to pause. And, you know, so I think the design of the book honors the very spirit and content of the work itself inside the book in a beautiful way.
You know, it's true. It's a cozy and comforting book when you read it. You just can hold it and bask in a page and feel you could take a pause or you could go on. There's something very engaging about it. Talking about it with some high school kids in Oklahoma this week, by the way, they all agreed that they had it hardest. That if you're a teenager, you probably had it hardest. Harder than the little kids, harder than the older people, because you're at just this particular time in your life that doesn't last that long. And camaraderie and collective experience is everything during those years. And they were very interested in this idea of us being part of the anthem, part of the chorus, and singing, you know, both out of isolation, singing our songs, but then in gratitude. Tyler, have you had responses to the book coming your direction so far?
Oh yeah, and very similar to what you guys are hearing, people who have been so energized by recognizing their experiences in other people's voices, or maybe not exactly, but also, you know, feeling that connection to others, and knowing how much we have to process, that there's so much that has been experienced, and that spectrum of emotion is one of the things that, you know, is a hallmark of what's happened over the last 2 years. And I think that the book has helped people get in touch with that, think about it, think through it, not just compartmentalize it away and not just race back to what our lives used to be, but really kind of earnestly recognize those emotions, welcome them, and try to understand them. So it's been a really rich response on my side too, similar ways.
To tell the truth, to be honest, to find the threads. And David, you must just be swamped since you're the ones who created the actual book there.
Yeah.
With goodwill coming in?
Oh, we have received, and I've shared them when they come in, emails from contributors thanking us and telling us what this has meant to them. Yeah. And you're so right, Naomi. The pandemic, I do believe, has been hardest on teenagers, particularly between that age of 11 and 17, 18. And I walked into my daughter's classroom with my mask when they finally were doing alternate days in person. She's 16. I walked into a sophomore English class at our local high school and did this exercise with them with the website up on a flat screen on the wall. And as they wrote and were so eager to share, to process their feelings, they watched their published reflections go onto the screen and talked about what it meant for them to hear each other share their emotions. But I think truly the toll on the mental health and the wellness, mindfulness of our teenagers has been the greatest. And I can speak about that, on a very personal level relative to the communities and the families I know in my town.
Yes. And let's talk just a little bit for a second only about some resistances to the vaccine from some people. I don't even know what their name was, but someone wrote a story in some random obscure paper that no one at the San Antonio Book Festival would be reading, saying that we were urging people to pray to the vaccine.
In school.
And I found that extremely comic.
Yeah.
And I think it's good now and then just to put out into the light some crazy accusation that was made and say, we really weren't, but sometimes I felt like I could, but I wasn't urging anyone else to pray to it. I just was praying I could get it more quickly, praying we'd all be safer more quickly. Who wants to be sick? I was working for a week when we were working on this book with kids in Singapore. And already there was a little bit of news filtering out from the United States to them about people saying, oh, the vaccine is bad, we're standing back from it. And they were like asking me, why would anyone stand back from a shield, from something that would make you feel safer in the world? Who would say something bad about that? It made me want to move to Singapore. But they just felt like if we can get a vaccine that protects us, protects our friends, our families, our elders, why wouldn't we? Why would we fight about it? Why would we make it something contentious? And they agreed that, we just have to focus on health. It shouldn't be used as some manipulated political tool. So have each of you, being administrators, received more kickback of that kind?
Tyler?
Yeah, well, yes, certainly. And I think that there, and that has, just as you've said, Naomi, it's come in different ways. But, one of the things I think about that the book does so well is, as much as it's about the actual vaccine itself, the magical thing that's in the needle, that is the shield. It's also so much about the human life around it. So it's about, what we've lost and what we might hope for, how those things have changed. And so when those questions come up, I like to try to point people back to, it's not so much that moment in the clinic, it's really about the life that is around that moment. And try to make sure people remember that we have more in common than we have that divides us. And so I think this book does a really incredible job of reminding us about those connective threads that we've been talking about. So David, how about you? Similar?
Very similar. And in Ohio, we also have had a raging debate. Debate makes it sound civilized, but people very vocally against Governor DeWine's great advocacy for vaccination. Our Republican governor, who wrote the afterword to the book. But again, like both of you, I think the magic of the book is that it does the role of the arts to help break our hearts open to each other. Hello.
This is a vaccinated person. Connor, did you get your vaccines?
Yeah.
And were they bad?
No.
No. How did you feel after you got them? Did you feel fine after you got them?
Yeah.
Yeah, he felt fine. I felt better that he was in public kindergarten with his vaccines in his body and much safer for him.
And
My
maybe
favorite person-
able to ride buses again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Soon. Yes, today we're going to ride a golf cart in a little while. Yes. Oh my gosh, there's a
I
spider.
love it.
Let me have a minute.
And we're
No, go ahead.
well, Connor, we're excited. I mentioned this earlier, Naomi, that the Kent State Press was approached by an agency in South Carolina who is developing a public service announcement using content. They asked to use content from our project, our book, to promote parents getting their children vaccinated to help, promote that. So
yeah. And Naomi, you talked earlier about about poetry, honesty, truth, the relationship between these things. And I think one of the things I'm most proud of, and I know David and I have talked about this, and Naomi, I know you feel this way too, is thinking about the arts as a site of trust. It's a place where we can go to connect with ourselves and connect with others. And so it's been profound to realize that poetry, which is this tiny art form and yet also this voluminous art form, has such a role to play in all of this work. And it's been so powerful.
Global role.
Global. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. That it's been so thrilling to feel connected in a tiny way to some of that power. So it's been awesome.
Well, you two are masters of connection. You always have been. I think you're old friends even before you were poetry administrators, correct?
It's
well,
true.
That doesn't hurt. I feel so lucky to know you both because to me, you're two of my heroes in the world who take the art, the genre of poetry, and embrace everyone with it and say, this is your world too. We're all in this world together. Give us your voices, share your voices, and you make everybody feel better. I've seen you both in action with your incredible crowds of wonderful, grateful people. And I thought as maybe an act of closing up gratitude today to our friends in San Antonio who have listened to us, we could each read a few favorites from Dear Vaccine and encourage anyone who's listening who hasn't contributed to the Dear Vaccine site to go there. Feel free to do that. I also wanted to thank the doctors Rachel Pearson and Dr. Ruth Berggren in San Antonio in the medical community who were very helpful to our project. They were taking cards to portable vaccination sites, moving around the city, inviting people to write their comments down. We got quite a few comments written in Arabic, for example, that were translated, or in Spanish that were then translated. Thank you to the medical community for all you've done for all of us. And here in San Antonio, I would also, look at those cards. There they are. Tyler has the cards. I also want to thank our dear Mayor Ron Nuremberg for his daily COVID updates, which gave us all a lot of confidence. My mom, who was 94, was listening to those every single day because she felt that helped us keep a grasp of what was going on. And so many of us felt lost in the midst of this scary mystery. So thank you, David and Tyler, for all of your work, all of your love for poets, for poetry, for community, and for acknowledging that we're all part of it together. So I will read a few of my favorites, and then we'll turn over to each of you to read a few and close it up. Thanks again for listening to us today. Thank you for attending the San Antonio Book Festival, whether you are joining us in person or virtually. We hope you are enjoying the many offerings of the festival's 10th anniversary, and we will close it out in the voice of poetry. Conrad Ng from Honolulu, Hawaii, he is the executive director of Shangri-La Museum there, also happens to be the brother-in-law of President Barack Obama, wrote, "Dear Vaccine, each sacrifice, large or small, each loss, large or small, was on the road to you, guided by people who believed in the value of human life." From our beloved singer-songwriter, born in San Antonio, Tish Hinojosa. Dear Vaccine, I am so grateful for you. Thank you for the relief you have brought to me and to those I love. My heart wants to hug you and sing you a love song. From Senator Bill Bradley in New York City. Dear COVID-19, each of us will not forget how we felt before you arrived. Our memory is stronger than your destruction, and that is a blessing. And one last one. This is from a very precious friend of mine in London, Jacqueline Safra. She wrote actually an entire book of lockdown sonnets, which is quite amazing. And here is her Dear Vaccine poem. Do not hug your vaccinator, though the urge is strong and true. Frontline staff aren't trained to cater for your excess gratitude. Do not promise lifelong ardor. Don't genuflect while in the queue. Do not make the process harder. Do bear your arm, then say adieu. Do not call them blessed savior. Do not attempt to shine their shoes. Do get a grip, and maybe later pen a grateful ode or two. Thank you.
I love it.
David, would you read a favorite one or two?
Sure. I'd like to read a poem from that we were able to include one student's poem from that sophomore class at Kent Roosevelt High School, my daughter's class. And it's special to me on a couple levels. The student, Vivian Blatnick, has become a pen pal with me, sharing more poems since she got word of our interest in her poem, and recently wrote a poem for her grandfather's funeral and read it as part of the memorial for him, and really feels like she has a voice now that she didn't feel she had prior to this invitation of the project. Vivian Blatnick, sophomore in high school. Dear Vaccine, restore us to each other. Rescue us from this sea in which we are drowning. Drowning in loss of loved ones, relationships, and hope. Bring my head out from under the water. Let us breathe again. Let us catch our breath. Guide us to land, dear Vaccine.
That's great.
Are you going to read the 1B Grandma from Comfort, Texas, Tyler, or do you have some others?
You know, I can't. What I wanted to share really quickly is a poem from someone in Minnesota, Warren Wustner, and what I just wanted to quickly say is one of my great concerns was my parents and elders everywhere. How do we take care of the people who felt most on the edge? And I think back to Lahab's The Molecular Song of the Vaccine. I think back to Ofelia calling it The Thing with Many Names. And here's a poem that has another way to describe what the vaccine felt like. So this is from Minnesota. An elderly friend searched for weeks and then found a pharmacy with a few extra doses in a small town that is a 3-hour drive from his home. He drove there immediately, although he seldom drove that far for any reason. Later, he said he felt great during the drive, as if he had just won some great prize and just had to come to pick it up in person. Oh. I love that, thinking of of our grandparents driving around seeking vaccines and winning prizes and doing so. So in that spirit and that energy, I think about all of the contributors to the book. And Naomi, again, thank you to you for your great spirit and guidance and the way that you charged the battery of this project and sent it flying. We could not be more grateful. You are the great ambassador for poetry, and it's been so much fun to be in your orbit even more with this project.
Thanks so much, Tyler and David.
Yes. You are the master weaver of this
Of the thread.
of these
Of all the
But you are the thread
truly are
maker.
global. Yeah.
So let's close with that great phrase, pick it up in person. Not
Yeah.
the virus, but the vaccine.
The
And
vaccine.
all the love people have to share about getting back to the real world. Enjoy yourselves, Book Festival friends. It's been great to be with you. David Hassler, Tyler Meier, and myself, Naomi Nye, thanking you for listening to us.